The sun had barely lifted over the wide Texas plains when a strange sound broke the morning calm, metal clanging against the front gate. I looked up from my porch coffee and saw dust rising down the long gravel drive. 3 SUVs idled at the gate, hazard lights blinking. Each had the words, HOA Compliance Division, slapped on the doors in cheap vinyl. And there she was, Karen, the self-proclaimed HOA president, wearing sunglasses so reflective you could see your own confusion in them. Clipboard in one hand, megaphone in the other, she shouted, "Sir! This ranch is in violation of Community Code 37B, unauthorized livestock structures." I nearly laughed. My ranch was outside their HOA boundary, 400 acres of private land registered under federal jurisdiction. But when she motioned for the men behind her to get out, my amusement turned to a cold, steady anger. They weren't HOA staff. They were dressed like officers, badges, belts, the works. I reached for my security tablet, zoomed in on one badge. The seal read, County Sheriff's Office. Why would a sheriff be taking orders from an HOA president? I walked toward the gate slowly, dust crunching under my boots. The sheriff, a nervous young man, kept glancing at Karen as if waiting for her approval. Karen barked, "We're here to inform you this property has been reclaimed by the HOA for zoning violations." I smirked. "Ma'am, you might want to check who you're talking to," she scoffed. "Oh, we know exactly who you are. Another cowboy who thinks he's above the rules." I held her stare a moment, then tapped my smartwatch. The massive front gates slid open with a heavy hum. Behind me sat a federal-issue black SUV with government plates and the state flag mounted on the porch rail. The young sheriff squinted, suddenly uneasy. I said quietly, "Ma'am, I'll give you one chance to leave before this becomes a federal incident." Karen folded her arms. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said, stepping aside. "That's a courtesy." That afternoon, a courier dropped an envelope on my mailbox. Inside, a letter stamped with a red HOA seal. Across the top, notice of eviction. The accusation? Unauthorized ranching operations and non-compliant perimeter structure. I scanned the form. It bore my forged signature, complete with my federal clearance code, one only available through government channels. I knew immediately what this was, a setup. Karen had managed to get her hands on confidential forms and was staging a legal coup. I called my assistant. "Pull the National HOA registry," I said. "We've got a rogue president running unauthorized jurisdiction." She replied, "Sir, she's not even listed in the registry." Meaning, Karen wasn't just overstepping her bounds. She wasn't a real president at all. By sunset, the roar of pickup trucks echoed down the lane again. Karen returned with a small crowd, neighbors holding up phones, recording like it was a TV show. "We're serving you live," she shouted. "This land is under HOA seizure." I leaned on the wooden fence post, calm but calculating. "Karen, this fence line predates your entire community. The HOA ends half a mile that way." She laughed bitterly. "Not anymore. We expanded jurisdiction last week." I gestured toward my fence camera. "Then you'll love how illegal your expansion looks on this recording." Headlights flared behind me, a government SUV. My chief of security, wearing a federal housing oversight badge, stepped out and said, "Ma'am, you're about to lecture your supervisor." The chief displayed his ID to Karen's crew. "This man is Director James Walker, Federal HOA Oversight Division." Karen blinked. "That division doesn't exist," he smiled. "It does. We oversee every homeowners association in the continental United States." Karen's voice cracked. "That can't be true." I stepped forward, holding my own badge, embossed with the federal crest. "You tried to evict a federal officer from his own property." "That's obstruction, fraud, and impersonation." The crowd behind her began to whisper. One of her supposed officers slowly removed his fake badge. Karen backed away, mumbling, "You can't touch me. My board will handle this." I nodded toward my chief. "Then let's attend her board meeting." That night, the HOA clubhouse glowed with light. Karen stood at the front, trying to rally her board. "He's bluffing." There's no such thing as a national HOA division. But her treasurer, a quiet man named Paul, and was pale, trembling. He'd already sent me an encrypted file earlier that day. Bank statements, meeting transcripts. and videos showing Karen pocketing HOA fines for personal vacations. As she ranted about defending their community, I sat quietly at the back of the room, hat pulled low. When she pointed at me mid-sentence, yelling, "You! You don't belong here!" I stood, pressed play on my tablet, and her voice filled the speakers. "Just raise everyone's dues by $200. "They'll never check the books!" Gasps erupted. Phone started recording. Karen froze, eyes wide. I looked up from the screen and said softly, "Now we play by my rules." The HOA boardroom went dead silent. Karen's jaw trembled, the recorded evidence still echoing through the speakers. She tried to recover. "This is out of context. He's manipulating the files." But her treasurer, Paul, stood up slowly, voice shaking. "No, it's real. I sent it. I'm done covering for you." You could feel the air thicken, that awful pause before everything collapses. Karen's face twisted into a bitter smile. "You think you can expose me? You'll destroy this whole community!" I folded my arms, calm. "The community's already destroyed. You just handed me proof of how deep your corruption runs." The clubhouse lights flickered, and then sirens began echoing down the street. 2 black SUVs pulled up outside the clubhouse, their headlights cutting through the night. Karen froze mid-sentence. The doors opened. Agents in plain suits stepped out, badges flashing under the porch light. "Ma'am, we're from the Federal Housing Oversight Bureau. We're placing this HOA under immediate review." Karen screamed, "You can't do this! This is harassment!" An agent replied, "You forged federal clearance forms and impersonated a sheriff. You did this to yourself." The crowd outside had grown. Neighbors with phones filmed everything as agents sealed the clubhouse doors. I turned to the stunned residents. "You deserve leadership, not extortion." Karen, handcuffed, looked at me through the glass and hissed, "You think you've won? You're not done with me yet." The next morning, as I watched the sunrise from the ranch porch, my phone rang. "Caller ID, governor's office." "James," the governor said, "I saw the footage. Half the state's HOA chairs are panicking. You've uncovered something bigger than one corrupt president." He sounded grim. "We've received reports. Dozens of HOAs under Karen's alliance have been extorting homeowners across 3 counties. We're initiating a statewide audit." I rubbed my temple, staring at the endless stretch of fence line. This wasn't a small scandal anymore. It was a network. The governor added quietly, "Be careful. People like her don't go down quietly." By afternoon, the retaliation began. Anonymous complaints flooded my division. My email filled with fake accusations, abuse of power, land zoning violations, bribery. Karen might have been arrested, but her influence lingered. Her allies were trying to bury me in bureaucracy. That night, my ranch's security alarms blared, motion sensors triggered near the north pasture. When I checked the cameras, I saw 3 masked figures cutting through the wire fence, carrying gas cans. Before I could even call for backup, floodlights snapped on, and a deep mechanical voice over the speaker said, "Trespassers detected. Authorization code required." They froze as my AI perimeter defense system locked onto them. The intruders dropped the cans and ran toward their truck, but the gates sealed shut automatically. My floodlights tracked their movements like search beams. When I arrived in my ATV, one of them tripped, his mask falling away. It was Karen's vice president, Mr. Dalton, the man who'd signed half the illegal eviction notices. "Dalton," I said, "you just made things a whole lot easier." He panicked. "You don't understand. Karen's not the one behind it. She's working for someone else." I frowned. "Who?" He hesitated, terrified. "They call him the chair. He runs the National HOA Syndicate." I stared at him, realization sinking in. This wasn't just local corruption. This was an organized operation using HOA laws to control entire neighborhoods. 2 days later, I met with the governor in Austin. He handed me a dossier, dozens of pages marked classified. Inside were photos, offshore accounts, and a list of HOA presidents, all reporting to one shadow name, the chair. A billionaire developer using HOA networks to launder money, silence whistleblowers, and seize private property. The governor looked grim. "James, you're the only one who can dismantle this. But if you fail, They'll erase you. I exhaled slowly, staring out the window toward the Texas horizon. Then we make it public. Every file, every receipt. They can't erase sunlight, my phone buzzed. A blocked number, I answered. You should have stayed on your ranch, said a deep voice. Now you're on our land, the line went dead. The Texas sun was setting low when I saw it, black smoke rising beyond the pasture. I jumped into my truck, tires spitting gravel, racing toward the western fence line. My heart pounded as I pulled up. The storage shed, where I kept old HOA files and sealed evidence, was engulfed in flames. 2 volunteer firefighters stood back, waving me off. We got a call from your HOA office. They said this was a controlled burn. I froze. That's a lie. I didn't authorize anything. They exchanged glances. Sir, the caller said you requested it personally. As the roof collapsed in a plume of fire, I realized every document, every printed record was gone. Karen's allies had wiped my local trail. Through the heat shimmer, I spotted a black SUV parked beyond the fence, tinted windows, engine idling. Watching. 2 days later, I arrived at the governor's mansion for a scheduled briefing. The gate guards looked uneasy. Sir, the governor's not available. I frowned. What do you mean, not available? The guard hesitated. He was escorted out last night. Federal custody. I pushed past only to be met by federal marshals inside, the kind that don't speak unless ordered. Mr. Walker, step away from the property. You're not authorized. When I demanded to know the charges, one agent leaned in and whispered, They're saying he took bribes from HOA developers. I knew it instantly. Fabricated. Karen's network had moved fast. That night, headlines exploded. Governor under investigation, HOA scandal widens. In the reflection of my office window, I saw the red dot of a laser sight dance across my chest. Instinct kicked in. I dropped behind the desk as glass shattered. 2 silenced shots hit the window where my head had been a second ago. I crawled across the floor, grabbed my service pistol, and hit the panic button under the table. The floodlights outside roared to life. Through the window, I saw a lone silhouette, dressed in black tactical gear, moving toward the tree line. Before I could fire, a sharp metallic sound echoed, Boom! The intruder tripped a hidden clay alarm mine I'd set weeks ago for coyotes. Smoke and dust filled the air. And when it cleared, all that was left was a badge. Not a criminal's badge. A private security tag from National Residential Enforcement, LLC. My eyes narrowed. That was one of the chair's shell companies. I took the badge to my contact at the bureau, Agent Ramirez. He'd been helping me track Karen's illegal finances for months. But when I entered his office, something was off. The blinds were drawn. His desk was empty. A new man in a dark suit looked up. Agent Ramirez is on leave. I'll handle your case now. I asked for ID. He smiled thinly, flipping a badge I'd never seen before. You can call me Cole. I work for the Housing Oversight Division. National Desk. He took the badge from my hand, examined it, then slid it into his coat pocket. You won't need this anymore. Something in his tone felt wrong. Later that night, when I checked the bureau directory, there was no record of any Agent Cole. Ramirez's phone went straight to voicemail. Then his number disconnected. 3 days later, I got an anonymous text. Come to the old HOA clubhouse. Midnight, come alone. It was signed Karen. When I arrived, the place was dark except for one flickering bulb inside. Karen sat at a table, wrists still red from where the cuffs had been. She wasn't wearing the smugness anymore, just exhaustion. They cut me out, she said, voice trembling. I was supposed to keep you quiet, not start a war. I leaned forward. Who are they? She looked up, eyes hollow. The chair doesn't forgive failure. They framed the governor, Ramirez too. And you're next. She slid a flash drive across the table. Everything I had, transactions, names, meetings. But it's only half. Where's the rest? I asked. She whispered, buried. Under the lake house at Willow Creek. Before I could respond, a red laser dot appeared on her forehead. She didn't even have time to scream. I dove behind the table as the shot shattered the window. Karen was gone, the flash drive soaked in her blood. Outside, tires screeched. A black SUV tore down the dirt road. I ran to my truck and followed, headlights off. The chase ripped through the back roads, dust clouds glowing under moonlight. I could barely keep up until the SUV swerved, spinning out near a ravine. When I approached, the driver was gone, vanished into the woods. But inside the wreck, I found a torn patch, gold embroidery reading NRE Division Command. It was Cole's company. The fake agent had ordered the hit. My phone buzzed again. A new message. If you go after the chair, you'll burn with the rest. The next morning, I made my move. I called in favors. Every contact I'd made in federal housing, law enforcement, and media. We set up a live press briefing right outside my ranch gate. With the governor still under investigation, I took the podium myself. The corruption of power through HOAs isn't a rumor. It's a network. And tonight, I'm naming names. Behind me, a giant screen lit up. Transaction logs, photos, contracts, all pulled from Karen's flash drive. The audience gasped. Reporters flooded forward as I read off the top 5. Names, including 2 senators and the CEO of NRE. But just as I said the final name, the chair, the screen glitched, static. Then a message appeared in blood-red text. You shouldn't have done that. The microphones went dead. The lights flickered. And the power across the entire county shut down. The silence was deafening. Cameras went dark. The hum of the generators died one by one. Reporters began to shout in confusion, their microphones cutting in and out. I felt the vibration before I heard it. A low rumble in the ground like thunder. Moments later, a convoy of unmarked SUVs rolled up the dirt road toward the ranch. Out stepped men in dark suits, faces expressionless, moving in perfect sync. The crowd scattered. Reporters ran for their vans. One man stopped just a few feet from me. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't have to. The air around him said everything. "Mr. Walker," he said evenly, "the chair would like to see you, in person." I met his gaze. "You can tell your boss I don't attend private meetings with ghosts," he smiled faintly. "This ghost signs your salary?" The ground trembled again, and I realized the sound wasn't thunder. It was helicopters circling overhead. One of the SUVs opened its door, and the governor stepped out wearing handcuffs. The convoy took us to an abandoned industrial complex 2 towns over. Inside, the smell of dust and oil filled the air. The governor was silent beside me, face pale but eyes steady. Guards led us into an underground elevator. Smooth steel doors. No buttons, just a keycard reader. When the doors opened, I saw it. A sprawling chamber filled with glowing monitors, digital maps, and walls covered in HOA district data. At the center of it all sat a circular desk, and behind it, the chair. She wasn't what I expected. Not a man, not a faceless executive. A woman in her 60s, calm, perfectly composed, sipping tea as if we were old friends. "Mr. Walker," she said softly, "you've caused quite the stir. You should have stayed at your ranch. You poisoned the system," I shot back. "You turned neighborhoods into empires," she chuckled. "Empires, yes, but necessary ones. Without us, America's housing collapses. You, of all people, should understand control." She slid a document across the table. "Sign this, a federal statement of recusal. You walk free. The governor walks free. You both disappear quietly." I looked down and realized the document already had my forged signature printed on it. I pushed the paper back toward her. "You're done hiding behind forms?" She smiled like a teacher humoring a child. "You think you're winning, but you're in my house now." With a snap of her fingers, the screens behind her flickered, showing live feeds from my ranch, my staff, even the governor's family. She was watching everyone, but then her tone changed. "The difference between us, Mr. Walker," she said, "is that I build networks. You burn them," I leaned in, "and you just built your last one." Before she could answer, I tapped my watch, the same one I'd used to activate my security feed back at the ranch. Hidden inside it was a live uplink. Everything she said was being broadcast to the entire nation. The screens behind her flickered again. Her own voice echoed back, projected across every HOA board livestream and news outlet. Her face went pale as the realization hit. She'd just confessed on national television. Chaos erupted. Her guards rushed forward, shouting into radios. Sirens began to wail in the distance, the real kind, not hers. I grabbed the governor by the arm and pulled him toward the elevator. The chair screamed behind us, "You don't understand. They'll burn it all before they let you win." The elevator doors slammed shut. We could still hear the alarms echoing as we ascended, the whole facility shaking beneath us. When we emerged outside, the horizon glowed orange. Explosions ripped through the compound one after another. She was destroying the evidence herself. The governor turned to me. "Do you think she'll make it?" I looked back at the rising smoke. She already didn't. As we drove away, I saw one black SUV peel off from the wreck. No license plate, no driver visible. 3 days later, every news channel in the country replayed the broadcast. Headlines blared, "HOA network scandal exposed. Federal inquiry launched. Agents raided over 200 HOA offices nationwide." Half the Senate was under review for illegal property influence. The governor was reinstated. And this time, the handshake he gave me wasn't political. It was grateful. "You didn't just save your ranch," he said. "You saved our entire system, but I didn't feel victorious. All I could think about was the people who'd been ruined by greed. Karen, Ramirez, even the chair. Power destroys the same way it seduces, quietly, until it owns you." That night, as I locked up the ranch house, I saw something glinting on the porch. A small envelope with no return address. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single keycard, identical to the ones used in the underground chamber. On the back, in looping cursive, was a note. "You can destroy one empire, Mr. Walker. But who will stop the next?" The air grew still. I looked up toward the horizon. Dark clouds gathering, the faint hum of a helicopter far away. Then faintly, the porch light flickered, just once. My security system, still linked to the old network, had received a new signal. "Incoming data transfer. Source unknown." The screen blinked. Then another line appeared. "Hello, Mr. Walker. We need to talk." The camera pans out from the porch, across the vast Texas ranch, the wind rustling through the fields as the storm rolls in. Fade to black.